is not a car company, not in the way you are picturing it. Yes, they manufacture automobiles, they design them, engineer them, market them, and sell approximately 4 million of them per year across the globe. But the economics of Ford Motor Company are the economics of three fundamentally different businesses that happen to share a name: a headquarters in Dearborn, Michigan, and 120 years of American industrial history. One of those businesses sells a single truck model that generates more annual revenue than McDonald's entire global restaurant operation. One of those businesses is a bank that profits from the same customers who bought the truck by financing their purchase and collecting interest for the next 6 years. And one of those businesses is currently losing approximately $44,000 on every electric vehicle it sells. In the largest financial bet that any traditional automaker has ever placed on a technology that may or may not reach the scale required to justify the investment. Today, I'm going to decode all three businesses and show you why Ford Motor Company is simultaneously one of the most successful industrial companies in American history and one of the most financially precarious in its current form, the assembly line economics that created the modern world. Here's where Ford's economic story begins, and where the most important business insight in American manufacturing history was discovered, not by accident, but by relentless pursuit of a specific economic goal. When Henry Ford began producing the Model T in 1908, the car cost $850, and approximately 6,000 were sold in the first year. Ford's goal was not to sell cars to wealthy Americans. Ford's goal was to make a car so affordable that any American worker could own one. And the mechanism he used to achieve that goal, the moving assembly line, introduced at the Highland Park plant in 1913, is the economic innovation that changed the world, not just automobiles, not just manufacturing, the world, by breaking the construction of a Model T into discrete sequential tasks, each performed by a worker who specialized in that single operation. Ford reduced the time to assemble one car from approximately 12 hours and 30 minutes to 93 minutes, and that reduction in assembly time, compounded across production volume that grew from 6,000 units in 1908 to 2 million units in 1924, reduced the price of the Model T from $850 to $260, a 69% price reduction, while simultaneously expanding the number of people who could afford to buy it, from wealthy Americans to the working class that had previously been excluded from car ownership entirely. The $5 day that created the consumer economy. Here's the business decision that most people remember as an act of generosity. And that was actually one of the most calculating economic strategies in the history of American industry. In January 1914, Henry Ford announced that Ford Motor Company would pay its workers a minimum wage of $5 per day, at a time when the prevailing manufacturing wage was approximately $2.34. The reaction from other industrialists was immediate and hostile. They accused Ford of socialism, of irrationality, of setting a precedent that would destroy American manufacturing economics. And Ford's actual reasoning was completely different from generosity. The Highland Park plant was experiencing annual employee turnover of 370%, meaning Ford had to hire and train approximately 3 new workers for every position every year. The cost of that constant recruitment and training in a facility where specialized knowledge of specific assembly line operations was essential to productivity was enormous. Doubling wages to $5 per day reduced turnover to a fraction of its previous level, stabilized the workforce, reduced training costs dramatically, and increased productivity enough that the wage increase essentially paid for itself. But Ford understood something else about the $5 day that made it strategically brilliant beyond the labor economics. Workers who earned $5 a day could afford to buy a Model T. The workers building the car became the market for the car. And Ford had intuitively grasped the economic principle that the most important customer is the one you are already paying. The F-150 empire that funds everything. Here's the financial engine that makes the modern Ford Motor Company viable. And that represents the most successful single product line in the history of American manufacturing. The Ford F-Series pickup truck has been the best-selling vehicle in the United States. Not the best-selling truck, the best-selling vehicle of any kind, for 47 consecutive years, since 1977. Approximately 750,000 F-Series trucks are sold in the United States annually, at an average transaction price of approximately $55,000, generating annual F-Series revenue of approximately $41 billion, more than McDonald's generates from its entire global restaurant network across 119 countries. And the profit economics of the F-150 are extraordinary by any standard of automotive manufacturing. Ford earns approximately $10,000 to $15,000 of operating profit on each F-Series truck sold, generating annual F-Series operating profit of approximately $7.5 to $11 billion from one product line that carries the economic weight of an entire company. And here's the strategic implication that Ford's management has understood for decades. The F-150's profitability is so dominant that almost every other decision Ford makes, the EV investment, the international expansion, the new model development, is ultimately funded by the profit generated by American truck buyers paying $55,000 for a pickup truck. The F-150 is not just a product. It is the financial foundation that supports every other bet Ford is making about its future. The Ford Credit Bank that doubles the profit. Here's the revenue mechanism that most people who own Fords have never thought about consciously, even though they are participating in it every month. When you buy a Ford vehicle and finance it through Ford Motor Credit Company, the company that built the car also lends you the money to buy it and earns interest on that loan for the entire duration of your repayment. Ford Motor Credit manages approximately $136 billion in outstanding loans and leases at an average interest rate of approximately 6 to 8%, generating annual revenue of approximately $14 billion from financing alone and pre-tax profit of approximately $1.8 to $2 billion from people paying interest on cars Ford has already sold them. Ford makes money when you buy the truck, and then makes additional money for the next 6 years, every month. As you make your payment, it is the most elegant double revenue mechanism in the automotive industry, and it is the reason that Ford Credit contributes approximately 40% of Ford's total annual profit, despite representing a fraction of the company's assets. The EV economics that could end or transform everything. Here's the financial story that is dominating Ford Motor Company's economic reality in 2026, and that represents either the most important strategic investment in the company's history or the most expensive mistake. Ford's Model E division, its electric vehicle business unit, is currently losing approximately $5 billion per year, which means it is losing approximately $44,000 on every electric vehicle it sells. Not $44, not $4,000, $44,000 per vehicle, and Ford has committed approximately $50 billion in total to the EV transition, an investment that dwarfs the Moon program cost in real terms, and that is being funded entirely by the profits generated by the F-150 and Ford Pro divisions. The strategic logic behind this investment is that the automobile industry is undergoing the most significant technology transition since the move from horse to internal combustion engine, and that a company that fails to establish competitive electric vehicle capability during this transition will find itself increasingly irrelevant as regulatory requirements and consumer preferences shift. The strategic risk is that the transition may take significantly longer than Ford's investment timeline, that Tesla and Chinese EV manufacturers may establish cost and technology advantages that Ford cannot overcome regardless of investment, and that $50 billion of losses in an EV business that is not yet profitable may exhaust the financial resources that the F-150 generates before the EV transition generates returns. The 3 business unit economics in 2026. Here's what Ford's complete financial picture looks like today. Ford Blue, which includes a traditional internal combustion engine passenger car and truck business, generates approximately $7 billion in annual operating profit, predominantly from the F-150 and the Mustang. Ford Pro, the commercial vehicle division including the Transit van and F-Series commercial trucks, generates approximately $6.7 billion in annual operating profit and is the fastest growing and highest margin division in the company. Ford Model E, the electric vehicle division, loses approximately $5 billion annually, creating a combined company operating profit of approximately $8 to $9 billion before corporate overhead and Ford credit income. That funds a balance sheet committed to a $50 billion EV transition, in a market where the timing and scale of consumer adoption remains the largest financial uncertainty Ford has ever faced. Here is the complete honest truth about the economics of Ford Motor Company in 2026. Henry Ford discovered in 1914 that paying workers enough to buy your product is the most powerful economic engine in capitalism. And the $5 day he announced that January morning created the American middle class and the consumer economy that powered the 20th century. 112 years later, Ford is making the same fundamental bet that investing aggressively in the technology that will define the next century of transportation, even at enormous current financial cost, is the economically rational decision for a company that has survived since 1903 by understanding that the future belongs to those who build it. Jake drives past a Ford dealer on his way home. The F-150S gleaming in the lot, each one representing approximately $12,000 of profit, funding a $50 billion bet on a technology that is losing $44,000 per vehicle today. And he understands that Ford is not selling trucks. Ford is using trucks to buy time, for a transformation that will determine whether the name on that dealership is still relevant in 20 years. You have been decoded. If this video made you think about Ford and about the economics of the American auto industry differently, subscribe to Money Decoder 3004. Every single week, we decode the economics of the companies and industries that have shaped and continue to shape every American's economic life, simply, honestly, and clearly. Drop a comment below. Do you think Ford's $50 billion EV bet is the right decision? Or should they stick to trucks and let Tesla own the electric future? Tell me below. I read every single comment, and I will see you in the next decode.